Welcome to EDAV video number 3, Data Analysis and Business Intelligence Made Easy with Excel Power Tools. And in this episode, we get to talk about Excel spreadsheet formulas for data analysis. Now, we'll do two main things. We'll talk about when in the world do you actually use Excel spreadsheet formulas, given that there's so many tools. And we will compare and contrast the old school method of using Excel spreadsheet formulas and the amazing new school dynamic array formulas. Now, below this video in the links, you can download this start file. There's also a file with the same name that says finished. That has all the examples from the videos after the video is finished. There's also PDF notes. Now, here are all of our objectives for this video. And of course, these objectives are always listed below each video. Now, this is Excel Basics 1, but below our video, if you look for that Show More button, you click, and there's a time hyperlink table of contents. Now, I want to go over to the sheet, and we're going to start on Y formulas. Here's our data set, and this is called a cross-tabulated report because the intersecting cell is adding sales based on the auto Ford and the sales rep J Young. Now, this cross-tabulated report is done with formulas. This cross-tabulated report is done with a pivot table. Now, how do you decide which tool to use, formulas or pivot tables? Well, reports built with Excel spreadsheet formulas update instantly when the source data changes. Reports built with pivot tables require that you refresh the report when the source data changes. Well, wait a second. If that's true, I'm using formulas all the time. Forget pivot tables. But the problem is, as we'll see next video, it's much easier to create pivot table reports than it is to create formula reports. As an example of the difference in how the two tools refresh when we see new data, I want to highlight this down here, and I want you to notice Honda Alma 33415. Honda Alma 33415. I'm going to copy with Control-C. And we learned last video, this is an Excel table. So when I click directly below and paste, Control-V, instantly those new records are incorporated into the Excel table object. My report sees the new data and updates. But look at this, the poor pivot table, it's still stuck on 33415. But no problem. All we have to do is refresh. Right-click anywhere in the pivot table, point to refresh, and instantly it sees the new data. So for each of these tools, the reason to use it, formulas update instantly. Reason to use it, pivot tables are easy, as we'll see next video. All right, we want to see how to use formulas to create reports. We're going to go to the next sheet, Formula and References. Now, here's our data set. And I want to start looking at formulas with an easy report. I want total sales for each one of these autos. Now, before we create our formulas, I want to change a default setting, because if you remember last video, if I were to create a formula and highlight a column in an Excel table, it gives me table formula nomenclature, table name, and in square brackets, the field name. Now, most of the time for data analysis, that's fine. But for our formulas, I want actual cell references. I want E9 all the way down to E25. So to change the default setting, I'm going to go to File, down to Options. In Excel Options dialog box, Formulas. In the Working Formulas area, I want to uncheck Use Table Names in Formulas. Now, most of the time we have this on because it's very convenient. But in this particular exercise, I want to look at the actual cell references. So we uncheck that and click OK. Now, if I were to reference this whole column, it puts exactly what I want. Escape. Now, our goal is to add, which means we're summing. And we're summing not all of the numbers, but only the numbers if the record is for Chevy. Only the numbers if the record is for Ford. So with H13 selected, I need some formula that sums if the condition at the head of the row is found in the data set. Now, we start all formulas with an equal sign. And since we're summing if something is true, Microsoft named the function smartly, SUMIFS. Now there's three things we have to put into the SUMIFS. Sum range, criteria range 1, and criteria 1. Now each of these is called an argument. We enter them separated by commas. Now sum range, we want to highlight the whole sales column. Since this is an Excel table, I point to the top of the header, and when I see my downward pointing black arrow, I click. Now that's exactly what we want, H9 to H25. However, there are different types of cell references in Excel formulas. Right now, if I copy this formula down to the next row and then the next row, this range will actually move one cell down and then another cell down. And that's not what we want. As I copy the formula, I want that range locked from E9 to E25. And the way we lock a range is we use the F4 key. The F4 key puts the dollar signs in. Those dollar signs are the secret code that tells the cell reference as we copy it to remain locked on that particular range. Now, when you do an absolute range, you want to make sure that there are 4 dollar signs. We see the E column and the 9th row is locked. That's that cell right there. And E25, that's that cell right there. So no matter where I copy this formula, it remains locked or absolute. Now I type a comma to get to the next argument. Now I see criteria range 1. I select above the auto field, click, and I want to lock this, so I hit the F4 key. Now I type a comma, criteria 1. That's the particular condition that SUMIFS will use to find matches in this column and then pick out the numbers for adding from the sales column. So criteria 1, I click on the condition at the head of the row. We do not want dollar signs here. We want this to be what is called a relative cell reference. That means from the point of view of the formula, as I copy down, where am I always looking? One cell to the left. Now I close parentheses, Control-Enter to put the formula in the cell and keep the cell selected. Now we need to copy it. And the best way to copy it is to use that little green box in the lower right-hand corner. That's called the fill handle. Now, right now, I see my selection cursor. That's not the one I want. That's the move cursor. I definitely don't want that one. I want to hover my cursor. And when I see that cursor, that's the crosshair cursor, or I like to call it the angry rabbit cursor. Left click, drag down, let go. And just like that, we've copied our formula. Now, anytime you copy a formula, click in the last cell and hit the F2 key, because you need to verify with this color-coded range finder that the ranges you wanted locked are locked, and the ones you wanted to move as relative cell references moved as you copied the formula. And sure enough, everything is working. Now I'm going to hit Enter, and we want to add some number formatting. So I'm going to highlight those numbers, go up to the Home ribbon tab, over to Number, click the drop down, and there it is. I'm going to use currency. Oh, maybe I don't want 2 decimals, so I can decrease the decimals. Now we have our report. Now remember, these are formulas. So if I change Alma's first record for Chevy to 43,000, before I hit Enter, watch there. When I hit Enter, instantly updates. Now if I click back in the top cell and hit the F2 key, this is called an old school formula, because we had to carefully consider what type of cell references we wanted, and then we had to enter it and copy the formula down. Well, if you have Office 365, there's something new called dynamic array formulas. Now, I'm shooting this in February 2019. Right now, these dynamic array formulas are only in preview. If you have Office 365 Insider Edition, and if you want it, just Google it. It's an easy search. That's the only version that has it. But Microsoft says that these new dynamic array formulas will be available only in Office 365 sometime early in 2019. But why would I show you something only in preview? Because you're not going to believe how easy it is compared to these old school formulas. Now, another thing about this solution, we had to know what all the names of the autos were, and we actually typed these in the cell, not with dynamic arrays. The first thing we do for a report like this is we type equals, and we're going to use one of these new dynamic array functions called unique. I can simply highlight the auto column, and it will deliver a unique list of every single auto in that column. I don't have to worry about cell references, and I don't have to enter it and copy it. I just hit enter, and it automatically spills. This is an example of a spilled array. Now, when you spill an array, I want you to click in the top cell and look up in the formula bar. I see the dark gray font color. If I click in one of the spilled cells, it's grayed out. That means it's just using those cells to spill. The formula doesn't actually live there. Because remember, we just entered it into one cell and it spilled. That means if we want to edit it, we click in the top cell and hit F2. Now I'm going to use another dynamic array. I want this as a sorted unique list. So I'm going to type sort, close parentheses at the end, and enter. That is absolutely amazing. What it means is when we're creating a report like this, we don't even necessarily have to have some list of what's in that column. We just use sort and unique, and we get our conditions or criteria for adding. Now, let's see how to use SUMIFS as a spilled array. Sum range, I'm clicking at the top of that column. And we do not have to worry about what type of cell references, because if SUMIFS delivers multiple answers, it will automatically spill. So I simply type a comma. Criteria range, autos, comma. Now, criteria 1. Whereas with the old school, we clicked on a single cell, and then when we copied it down, it knew to move. In the new dynamic array spilled formulas, in criteria 1, I just highlight all the conditions. Now, something interesting happened. Remember, we said the formula only lives in the top cell. So it's only pointing to the cell where the formula lives. That pound sign is the syntax which says, hey, no matter how this spilled array changes, I'm always going to get the full spilled array. Now, how does SUMIFS here know to spill but doesn't spill over here? Well, over here, the criteria 1 argument over here had one single cell. Over here, it has 1, 2, 3, 4 different items, all in criteria 1. Anytime you put multiple items into the criteria 1 or criteria 2 argument, it instructs SUMIFS to deliver 4 different items. This is called a function argument, because that's a function argument, array operation. We put an array of items in here, and it instructs SUMIFS to deliver an array of answers. Close parentheses. And now, of course, when we hit enter, it just automatically spills. That is amazing. Now, as I said, Microsoft said sometime in early 2019, they haven't specified a date, but go out and get Office 365, because this is the next big thing in Excel formulas. Now, we do need to add some number formatting, so I'm going to highlight that range. Home, drop down for currency. Now we have our 2 auto reports, and we want to see what happens to both solutions when we add new data. And we want to notice there is a new auto here. So I'm going to highlight this, Control-C, and below the table. By the way, when we have an Excel table and it's expanding, I would never keep anything down below the table. But for this small example, I'm going to click in one cell below, and we're going to watch up here, Control-V. And you got to be kidding me. Look at that. The autos, unique list, and sorted. There's Subaru. Formulas totally spilled down. Now, these are formulas that sit in cells, so the formatting isn't automatically copied down. If you anticipate new records, sometimes what I like to do is highlight on a bunch of additional cells and add formatting. But in this case, I'm simply going to click the cell, Home, drop down, Currency. But our old school method did not see that new product. No problem. I'm going to hopefully spell it right, Tab. Now, actually, that formula did automatically copy down with the formula, but that comes from a setting in options called autocomplete. But wait a second, F2, it got all the dynamic ranges in the table over here. Oh, look at that. I'm a bad typer. I spelled it wrong. So now Subaru and tab. Now it's out of order, so I could simply come up and right-click, sort A to Z. And now Subaru's in the right order. All right, let's look at another example. But for these reports, we want to count how many sales for each auto. Now, just like there's a SUMIFS, there's a COUNTIFS. Now, up above here, we saw this same option. There's one with an S and one without an S. The one with the S is the one we want to use. This function used to be the only option we had, but it's very limited. It can only count, or up here only add, with one condition. We always want to use the one with the S, because then it gives us the option to count with one or more condition, and up here to add with one or more condition. Also, whenever you see your function highlighted in blue from the drop-down list, you use the tab key to enter it. Now, criteria 1, I highlight all the autos. I need to lock it, so I hit the F4 key. That's an absolute cell reference. Now I type a comma. Click on the criteria at the head of the row. That's a relative cell reference. Close parentheses. Control-Enter. We have to copy it down. Then we always have to go to the last cell and hit the F2 key. We want to verify that all the cell references are looking in the correct location. Now think about that. Old school, we had to worry about cell references. We had to enter it, copy it, and then verify in the last cell. So Office 365 makes our life easy. Equals sort, tab. Unique, tab. Highlight autos. Close parentheses, close parentheses. I don't have to worry about what type of cell references. I hit Enter, and it automatically spills. And I don't even have to go to the last cell to check it. All right, now equals COUNTIFS, the one with the S. I'm highlighting the column, not going to worry about cell references, comma. I put my condition of auto in. Oh, but wait a second. I want to do a function argument array operation, so I click and drag all the way to the end. Cell reference where the formula lives, pound, close parentheses. And when I hit Enter, it's spilled down, and I have my report. All right, so we saw adding and counting with a single condition, old school and new school. Now let's go look at cross-tab reports where we do an AND logical test. Now our goal is that we want a cross-tabulated report showing total sales by auto and sales rep, average sales by auto and sales rep, and count of transactions by auto and sales rep. We have 3 different reports. We'll do it old school and new school. Now, this example here will illustrate that the new school dynamic array formulas are much easier than our formulas. And next video, when we do pivot tables, we'll see that having to deal with a cross-tabulated formula is pretty complicated. But again, there are absolutely some reporting data analysis situations where you want to use formulas. Now, one of our criteria here is we are entering data each day, and we want the reporting solution to update instantly when we add that new sales data. So we're going to do formulas. Now, this one is adding, so we do SUMIFS, the sum range, all of the sales, F4 to lock it, comma. Criteria range 1, well, we have 2 conditions. And because we're doing an AND logical test, it doesn't matter at all in which order we put the columns. I'm going to start with criteria range 1, sales rep. Hit the F4 key, comma. Well, criteria 1, that's ALMA all right. But here's the difficult part, because this is a formula that we're copying down and then over to the side. In our last example, we were only copying it down. So what does that mean for cell references? Well, we have 2 directions that we need to consider for either locking, making absolute, or leaving relative. Now let's think about this. That's H11. Well, as I copy down from H11 to H12 and then 13, do I want the 11 to move? No, I don't. I absolutely want H11 to be H11 all the way down. So that means I'm going to hit the F4 key not one time, because that puts in $2, but 2 times. That puts the $sign just in front of the number. By the way, let's hit F4 again, and then F4 again. The F4 key is actually the merry-go-round key that toggles between the 4 different types of cell references. But I'm going to stop there because I want to stop the 11 from moving to 12 and then 13. That H, however, notice there's the H. Well, when I move from Alma and copy the formula over to J Young, I want the H to move to an I. That's why we do not put a $sign in front of the H. Now I come to the end, comma. Criteria range 2, there's the autos. F4 to lock it in all directions. Comma. Criteria 2, there's the Chevy. This is different than our H11 because G12. There it is, G12. Well, of course, G12, I want it to move. Notice there's the 12 row. I want it to move to G13, then G14, and so on. I do not want a $sign in front of the number. But when I copy the formula from the H column over to the I column, I do not want G to move. I want G to remain locked on G. So in this case, I hit the F4 key 1, 2, and 3 times. Lock the column reference, but not the row. And that's our formula. Close parentheses, Control-Enter. You can either copy it to the side or down, but you have to pick one direction. I'm going to copy it down, let go, re-grab the fill handle with your angry rabbit, and click and drag to the side. Because we're copying the formula through a rectangular range, you go diagonally furthest across and hit the F2 key. We want to verify that all of the cell references are pointing to the correct locations, and they all are. That's how to create a cross-tabulated report with what are called absolute cell references and mixed cell references. That's a mixed cell reference because, in this case, column reference is not locked, but the row reference is. Absolute, mixed with the column lock, but not the row. Now let's hit Enter. Now we want to see how to do the same cross-tab report, but with our dynamic array formulas. Now, I accidentally typed out values here. So I'm going to create my formula here, and we'll learn something important about dynamic arrays and how they spill. Equals sort tab, unique tab, and I will select autos. Close parentheses, close parentheses. I'm going to hit Enter. Uh-oh, that spill error is when the formula bumps into something it can't spill. I forgot that these are values there. As soon as I delete them, it spills correctly. Now we'll come up here and delete. And in the first cell, sort, unique, sales rep. Close parentheses, but watch what happens. Whoops. I need these to not spill vertically. I need them to spill horizontally. No problem, F2. An old school array function comes to the rescue. Transpose. All transpose does is take something vertical and converts it to horizontal, or vice versa. Now, the unique function is one of the new array functions. New, been around as long as I can remember. But they will all work together to spill horizontally. Equals SUMIFS, the sum range, comma, criteria range, comma. I highlight the spilled array. There's that pound sign. By the way, if you type these in, you could highlight these 4 cells, and it would show up as a regular cell reference like that. And it would work. It just wouldn't be referencing a dynamic array formula that's being spilled. Comma. We get our sales rep column. Comma. There's our spilled array. I love this. Close parentheses and Enter. That is just magic. Now, for average, we saw COUNTIFS and SUMIFS, but here's average ifs. It doesn't say sum range like SUMIFS did because we still need to put the numbers in, but this time it's going to average them. F4, comma, autos, F4, comma. There's the auto, F4, 1, 2, 3 times. Lock the column, but not the row. I need 20 to move to 21, 22, and so on. Comma, sales rep, F4. Actually, I'm going to forget to F4, comma, ALMA, F4 twice to lock the row but not the column. Close parentheses, Control Enter. This time we'll copy it to the side and then copy it down. Now already you could see the problem, but if you go to the last cell and hit F2, this is why we do that. We're verifying, are all of the cell references and ranges pointing in the correct location? No, they're not at all. What's that green one doing? It's way over here. That green one should be locked on sales rep. So when we see one of the ranges out of place, escape, you have to go back up to wherever the top is and hit F2. There it is. The easiest way to reselect something inside of a function like this is to use the screen tip. I click on Criteria Range 2 to highlight it. Now with the whole range selected, I can hit F4 to lock in all directions. Control Enter. Copy to the side. Double click and send it down. Divide by 0 error. That means there weren't any because average has a count of 0, and you can't divide by 0. Now there's a few ways we can fix this. The easiest way, since this is a really small data set, is F2. We simply, after the equal sign, type if error tab. If error will take whatever's in value and run it every single time. When it comes out to be an error, then I very carefully click at the end with my I-beam cursor. I type a comma, and then it says, hey, what do you want me to put in if it's an error? 0, close parentheses. Control Enter. Copy it to the side. And here's a cool trick. Since we're copying something down and there's stuff all the way on the left of the formula, I can simply double click that fill handle with my angry rabbit. I go to the last cell and hit F2. I just want to verify that all of the cell references are working. Now I already created the spilled arrays for our condition or criteria. I see my average ifs. This is going to spill, so I simply put the numbers in, comma, criteria range, there's the auto, comma. There's the reference to the spilled array, comma. Sales rep, comma. Reference to the spilled array, close parentheses. And when I hit Enter, that is amazing. F2, we could say if error, comma, 0, close parentheses. And when I spill it, that is beautiful. That's the formula we use if we want to create a report for counting, cross tab. Control Enter. Copy it to the side. Double click and send it down. Check that last corner cell, F2. Over here, this is our spilled array formula. When I hit Enter, just like that, I have my report. And one last interesting thing, let's just say I want to delete all the formulas. If I click in the top cell for our old school formulas, I hit Delete. It's just that one cell. You actually have to highlight them all and hit the Delete key. Now I'm going to Control ZZ. But when we have a spilled array, remember, it lives in just that cell. Delete. All right, I'm going to Control Z. Wow, that was a pretty epic video all about data analysis with formulas. Hey, there are some homework problems. There's 1 and 2 homework problems. The red sheet shows you the answer, but don't look. Don't look there till you try it. Let yourself have some fun and try it first. All right, in this video, we talked about why sometimes we have to use formulas in data analysis. And it's pretty simple. If you want your solution to update instantly, formulas are the only tool that does that. We did a single condition report using old school and new school. We did adding and counting. And of course, we did our cross-tab reports, adding, averaging, and counting. All right, if you like that video, be sure to click that thumbs up, leave a comment, and subscribe, because there's always lots more videos to come from Excelisfun, including next EDAB number 4, all about pivot tables. All right, we'll see you next video.